The client is working again. Spicy challenge deck lists are back. Let's dive right in. Hey guys, welcome back to Casting Commons, the show where we talk and discuss all things Pauper. I am your host Teasdale, and this is my co-host, the autonomous furnace himself, Reese.
It's a deep cut after we've used all the red cards already.
Yes. Before we start, please do not forget to hit that like, subscribe, and follow button so you never miss an upload. Also, don't forget to give us 5 stars on Spotify because you know you want to anyways. So I believe we've had a good, positive week of Pauper. Are you?
Yes. Yeah. So I guess sadly this week I missed F&M. But that was because I played in the Friday challenge, which I thought would finish in time, but then you reminded me that it starts an hour later than it used to start. So my time was like nowhere close. But yeah, I played Kuldotha in the Friday challenge and ended up top 8, which was pretty sweet. It probably should have been a top 4, but I got really unlucky in the top 8. But I guess that's how the breaks go. But yeah, I guess we'll probably talk about that more in the Friday challenge section where it's a bit more relevant. Other than that, not much outside of playing in that challenge really. Didn't play any Joe Command, as I said. I missed F&M. And I'm sort of set on what deck I'm going to play now, so I haven't really been building anything else. I don't know if you've got any further with deciding on what deck you're going to play.
For reference, if you are watching on video, I'm shaking my head with a no. I'd probably say I'm further away than I've probably ever been.
Oh dear.
So, not only has Foundations just come out, so I've tried to record for content, not for testing purposes, which then makes me always makes me doubt, especially when not a random pile, but piles do well or do okay with. So like I'm always like I played a league today with elves, with the new Dwin in a league, and I was like, oh, do I play elves? Like, wait, why am I even considering?
Yes.
I'm not gonna play elves.
Oh.
So like it's not my deck, or I would die to RNG just like Dredge, with my wind and ways hitting one card and all that sort of stuff. But
I suppose as well, elves in particular really rewards you for knowing the deck and the matchups and like how to play around these like blowout spells where if you're just picking it up first time, like you'll get a few of them for knowing the format, but then there'll just be interactions that you probably won't consider. So it's maybe not the best choice, even if it is sweet.
No, like not wrong. Deck was good. Dwin Elite felt good. I don't know if it's sold, like it's not blew the deck up. Like it wouldn't, obviously, it's just strengthened it just that little bit. I think the thing that I like about it is now that the deck's moved away from like Distant Melody and you just got this like stompy plan, if you don't see your stompy stuff, like your Nyxborn Hydras or your Timberwatch Elves or whatever, like having more 2/2s is actually relevant. Like you can just go wide and just, and that's a relevant thing, just splurging a bunch of 2/2s and 1/1s on the field to just hit.
Yeah. I think as well, obviously, you ran that list that I sent you, which was just like the first take of Dwin Elite being in the format and just slotting it right into the already existing elf lists. But in particular, Elvish Vanguard gets a lot better with that card. I'm not sure how to fit them all in to the same deck. Maybe like some of the stompy parts will have to fall more to elves. But when you're, like you say, you're playing a lot more X2 bodies plus your Vanguard's getting bigger a lot faster, you can maybe that's a cost that's reasonable to pay. But yeah, missing Vanguard definitely doesn't allow Dwin Elite to shine as much as I think it will with that in the deck as well.
Yeah, that's fair. And it was definitely sweet. I'll definitely be probably messing about with it again. Once I've settled everything with Foundations. I've got some Heir Apparents to play soon. Got to try them out. Make some rabbits.
How much does obviously the elves had the Mez Fiend in the sideboard as well? Does Pilfer from Foundations sort of fulfill that role? Obviously, it's not a creature, I guess, so probably not if you're still playing the Winding Ways, but a lot of them seem to have cut those.
Well, Well, the list I played ran 6. It ran 4 wine
Yeah.
and ways, 2 leads. And I think, to be fair, finding a creature that does the sort of interaction points probably good, like Mesfiend. But
Yeah.
I think it played vines in the main as a way to deal with Glee, and that was fine. It was okay. But it came up quite a lot in other ways too, like against Stompy, like actual red green ramp. They literally just tried to bestow a Nick Spawn Hydra onto a spawn or something. Or actually came up another way with Shinnin as well, Shinnin of Life's Raw.
Oh, okay. That's a pretty relevant one.
They tried to channel it, and I was like, nope.
Yeah, not today.
So yeah, it was actually surprisingly good. The vines, it came in pretty good as well. And obviously it's got the helps with Crackland Toxin. Not that that's that much relevant. It's more the life gain for that on the Death Touch, but yeah, it was pretty solid. The list felt pretty good.
Sweet.
But that's about it. That's all I've done. Just brewed a few ideas, but I'm no further on for nationals. Nowhere close. So, not good.
I'll make sure I've got a few different decks built up for you to decide the day before.
No, that's at what point this is probably going to come to.
I don't actually know when the submission deadline is for deck lists. Actually, we should maybe check that.
I have absolutely no idea, but right at this moment in time, I can't even. I'll ask for an extension. I'm nowhere close. Yeah, not good. I might try Pestilence Food this week to see if I can bottom that idea out. See if I want to take that or not. That's yeah, no idea. Anyways, moving on to some news.
Yeah, if you've got I don't think we've got much.
Yeah, so just a little bit of obviously. Don't forget to check out Twitter, Casting Commons 1 is our Twitter page. Obviously, we do retweet all the 5Os deck lists that people tag us in, what we see, etc. So please do recommend checking that out. We are a hub for Pauper content and Pauper being on the money for the extra content. Like, if you know any little small change, we're already on it. Don't you worry. So give us a follow. Really appreciate it. And then obviously going out to Nationals 2 weeks ago, which is even more daunting. Thanks for writing that down. Cheers. Much appreciated. So the update is at time of recording, there is 1 ticket left. The people on the wait list have been notified, so it might have already sold. But if you are thinking of going, obviously just do check it out. People's plans change. People can't go, can go, but for whatever reasons. So obviously, keep her out. They might get refunds. I think it's up until 2 days before or something. So at the time of recording, there is one ticket available. And that is basically all the news we've got, apart from Magic Online's working. They've put another patch out to fix the client. And then they even put in the big box where they tell you news. If your cards are missing, just press the scroll wheel slightly and it'll fix itself. It's just went too big to too small to sort of getting there.
Yeah, it was a weird. I think basically the patch was just removing most of the stuff they'd added, and all that weird zoom and features and stuff. But yeah at least it's working, and it was updated quite quickly, to be fair as well.
One thing I've noticed, they've changed. Obviously, they've added this enchantment border on basically everything, and they've changed some of the artwork or the way the artwork looks. So Snuff Out looks weird, and it's really annoying.
I was watching your video. I can't remember which video it was last week where you were playing Snuff Out and you said, "Why does this look really weird?" And I think it's because the mystery booster future sight cards must have been added, and obviously because of the border, their art's zoomed in. But then that art is now on the normal cards as well. Yeah. So Relic of Progenitus is the same. It's weirdly zoomed in on the normal card.
Yeah, it just looks odd.
Yeah, it does look peculiar.
I think I might have to get all bordered ones just because it's annoying the hell out of me. So.
See, that only solves it with some of them though. Yeah. Obviously the relics are just that it's zoomed in. There's one art. But yeah, the Snuff Out, if you got the masks ones, it would fix that issue.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you want to move on to some challenges?
Yeah. So Friday the 15th, which had 46 players. First place was Grixis Affinity. Second place was Grixis Affinity. Third was Black Red Madness. Fourth was White Weenie. Fifth was Blue Black Snack Affair. Sixth was Cold Author, which was myself. Seventh was I'm calling it Pinger Aggro because I really don't know what to call it nowadays. Basically, the Weber Kuldotha list with Flame Breather. 8th was Kuldotha, and then the Nemesis 9th was a Fair Fans list, and 10th was another copy of Grixis Affinity. So I guess I'm gonna say pretty stock top 8 with like lists that we regularly see there. I suppose White Ween is a bit of an outlier nowadays. And obviously the Pinger Aggro is a bit of an up and comer, but Kuldotha, Blue Black Control dot deck, Black Red Mana, Grixis Affinity, all over it. It seemed like a pretty common choice, Grixis Affinity. I haven't looked at the data, but from what I experienced playing, it seemed like it would be probably one of the most played decks, probably alongside Kuldotha. I don't know if you've got that to hand.
On the Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, so on the Friday there was 6 Grixis Affinity, 5 Kuldotha.
Yeah, so it makes sense. But yeah, a pretty sweet one. Obviously, it's nice to see that Pinger Aggro deck doing well and sort of being a different take on the like mono red slot. Obviously, we haven't seen like classic burn or Pinger burn in quite a while. I think this list must be a development as well from that original Weber list because it actually doesn't run any Kuldotha at all now.
Yeah.
16 creatures with just the 4 Percussionist, 4 Tomb Raider, 4 Flame Breather, and 4 Epicure. And then it's got obviously your burn that you would expect with bolts, blasts, and chain lightnings. And then a couple of like weird one-offs, like the improvised club still there's a one-of, Fire Blast still there's a one-of to end the festivity effects, and then 4 of the impulse effects. Yeah, it seems pretty interesting. It'll be. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it'll stick, but it'll be cool if it does stick, and we have like the diversion again, where we have 2 different mono red versions, basically.
I think it seems fairly solid at the moment as well, especially if, for the most part, you'll play the Tomb Raider Percussionist sort of aggro plan. Obviously, gets most of the way, and then usually it's like the burst of Kuldotha Bushwhacker sort of like gets the rest of the way with normal traditional Kuldotha, and then topped off with burn at the end.
Yeah.
At the point where you've still got that Percussionist Epicure Tomb Raider side of things, and then everyone's prepared for Kuldotha with sitting there with end the festivities, as you're saying, like all that sort of jazz. Then this Flame Breather draw engine sort of side of things just takes a different spin on it, which actually makes them unprepared for it. Will probably just hard carry a lot of games. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I think as well, if it's in matchups where their sideboard plan is stuff like Breath Weapon, obviously they still want to board that in because you've got that sort of aggressive slant with the creatures.
Yeah.
You obviously don't care if Monkey gets Breath Weapon away and you get your Voltaren value anyway. But then you're not having to worry about like when to Kuldotha, like waiting for them to tap out to Kuldotha. You can just like commit your Kessig and like start drawing cards or burning them and not have to worry about these breath weapon or drowning sorrow type cards as much. Yeah, it is a sweet one, and we will see it again, I believe, in this week of challenges. So it's definitely picking up pace. I guess as for my challenge experience, it was pretty sweet. I was 3-0 going into round 4. I beat Jund Glee round 1, Grixis Affinity round 2, and Gardens round 3. All of which seem just like ridiculous Kuldotha shenanigans, basically. Round 4, I lost against Bath, who was on the 5th place Blue Black Snagger. He was my only loss in the Swiss. It was annoying because game 1 I misclicked and skipped a combat where he would have took between 2 and 5 damage depending on how he blocked, and then at the end of the game he beat me while he was on 2 life. So I maybe should have got a game there, but it did feel like a pretty tough matchup, to be honest. And then round 5 and 6, again, I played Grixis again. And again, just Kuldotha shenanigans. And then round 6, I played Madness. which was the third place, the Black Red Madness in third, which didn't feel close at all. Like I just completely ran away with it. But then my first round of the top 8 was a rematch against that Madness deck, which always seems to happen to me in top 8s. I immediately play the thing I've just beaten the round before. And then I lost 1-2 to that deck in the top 8. The game 1, I lost, but then just ran over him on the draw. Game 2, I kept what I would have said was a good hand, but it just didn't have any burn. But it had like Gorilla Shaman, Synth, Monkey, like other stuff like that. But then he just like double Kitchen Imped really fast, and I had like 12 draws and didn't see a single burn spell to answer these Kitchen Imps. And he ended up being able to race me with those. And then game 3, that game as well, my Gorilla Sham was just completely useless. He never had a single target. He like drew all of his non-artifact lands, and never made any bloods. So I was like, oh, this Gorilla Shaman looks really good. And then game 3 was just a really close race, and he basically ended up ripping the Bolt, and I ripped 3 lands. So I think he ended on 2, and I ended on exactly 0. So it was unfortunate. If I find any burn spell in that second game, I probably win because I can slow the clock down like enough that I can actually race. But it didn't feel like a bad matchup. And for basically my first testing of Kuldotha online in months, it seemed pretty convincing. My list was basically just Selka's exact list. I haven't had any time really to put into testing, so I was just like, well, Stelka's done all the testing. I'm just going to use that information. And he has on his Patreon a sideboard guide as well. So I just used his exact sideboard guide as well, which is really solid. And I recommend it to anyone who's wanting to look at playing Kuldotha, just to jump on that information. Someone's already done it for you.
Yeah, he's always on the nose and definitely on the money with this stuff. I obviously showcased that as well last time he did a sideboard guide. Just literally got his sideboard guide and just took Kuldotha. Not an aggro player whatsoever. Just even has a in detailed description of what your game plan is against each deck from memory. I'm assuming it's still the same. Makes you understand what you need to keep, what you don't need to keep, and I took it to a 5-0 with a breeze. So like, it's literally his sideboard guides are definitely worthwhile. They're not just the board this in, board this out. It's very much a detailed sideboard plan. Like, you want to be doing this because of this. It makes you understand. So solid result. Obviously, a lot of matchups, I think, as well. It seems like a lot of the decks that you versed are very much like they are good matchups if they don't find or you make them have X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And
yeah, the double affinity and the gardens I expected to be much tougher than they were. But like with how explosive Kuldotha is now, it like wasn't even close. They basically have a turn to find their one answer that answers it effectively. If they don't, they just lose.
100% how it feels. It's very much like you can't just nickel like, oh, I'll put these in and that'll sort of get me away. It's just so consistent to the point where you need that answer on that turn. Yeah, it's definitely a strong deck for sure, and putting them in check is great.
Yeah, especially like the red sideboard cards are probably some of the best sideboard cards in Pauper as well. So you can just win games with sideboard cards. Like one of the games in the Swiss against Madness, in round 6, game 2 in round 6. I literally just drew a Gorilla Shaman, blew up 3 of his lands, and he just lost. Like he just drew the wrong half of his deck, and I drew one of my 3 Gorilla Shamans, and it just ended the game completely.
Do you want to go on to the 9th place list, the Fair Fams?
Yes, a pretty sweet one, to be honest. I'll let you go over this. It's a bit more your bag.
So it's the remove soul. It's the Meet the Minds build of familiars, but obviously with the fairies packaging, which usually does incorporate stuff like Fairy Seer and Spellstutter Sprite. But this list has opted just for 4 Spellstutter Sprites and 3 Pestimites.
Mm.
This pilot is in the FAM's Discord and has played sort of Pestamite before. The interesting thing about Pestamite is that it does allow another form of loop where you can actually combo off with a Godpharaoh's Faithful, 1 Familiar, 1 Archaeomancer, and then 1 Pestamite, because you get to Ghostly Flicker the Pestamite and the Archaeomancer to basically
Oh, and untap your land.
and the Pestamite can untap the land, yeah, which basically effectively is like another familiar in that instance. So it just adds that loop, but also being a fairy at the same time to obviously help with the spell sort of sprite. But then they're both good, strong flying bodies as well. So then you've also got Meeting the Minds as well, which help with that. But then after that, it is obviously just familiars. You know, you've got your Archaeomancers, your Dawnbringer Clerics, your 4 Muldrifters, which I would also say is quite out of the ordinary nowadays as well. Most have settled for 3 because it's a bit slow. And then you've got the 3 Pestimites, 4 Spellstutters, and the 4 Familiars. Still managed to put in 4 Snaps and 1 counter spell of choice, which is a Remove Soul. The only thing that I find interesting as well is that they haven't, with Spellstutter Sprite, they've chosen not to go up on Ephemerates. They're still on the 2, which is pretty interesting to me. But then, yeah, got 4 Preordains and 2 Lorinville to round it off the main deck, really. There's nothing super interesting about the land choices. Got a 1 of Mortuary Mire is pretty stock, 2 Ash Barrens, 2 Landscapes, 4 Chanceries. The white-blue land you can find off Lorien, and then 2 plains, 8 islands. Nothing too spicy. But the Spellstutter Pestamite thing does make it a bit interesting. Like, Pestamite does have a lot of uses that you just wouldn't really think of. Similar to, like, is it Snare Master Sprite was in Mono Blue?
Yeah.
Obviously, just tap annoying things down to get your damage through with your Muldrifters and your Spellstutter Sprites, etc. So, and you can
save your you can combo as well.
Yeah. So it has a lot of uses. People who've played in the blue-red twin era of Modern will know exactly how annoying Deceiver Exact / Pestamite is. But plus side of Spellstutter Sprite. Pretty sweet list.
I guess sticking to the fair game plan, there was quite a sweet list in 11th place, so we didn't mention it in the top 10. But I thought it's probably worth going over because it's something we don't really see very often. It's blue-red fair, so it's like the blue-red Scred shell with like your Lorians, Ponders, Counterspells, Screds, Lightning Bolts, etc. But then instead of the usual like terrors that we see, it's instead got 4 Fairy Seers, 4 Ninja of the Deep Hours, and 4 Spellstutter Sprites.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. It's obviously, I think, to be fair, Scred's in a pretty solid position right now, to be honest. And then obviously Spellstutter's always been good, especially with the influx of Glee. But then I think also it's probably pretty well positioned against Red, I'd say, to some extent. That obviously the removal spells doesn't lose your life like Snuff Out does. But then you get pretty much similar sideboard cards. So
yeah,
definitely an option for sure, and definitely a sweet option to take. I would suggest if you are thinking of picking up fairies, maybe consider blue-red over blue-black.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just to reiterate what you're sort of getting at there, Scred at the moment is just really good. Like it answers everything you want to answer early, and then it scales to the late game. So if you're against like Ponzers or even like Marine Forces and stuff that Lightning Bolt doesn't hit, it just still hits them and kills them.
Yep.
I guess if you're not black, you want to be probably Scredding or doing something really aggressive. It's like the red Snuff Out.
Anything else to add about Friday?
No, I don't think so. Other than if they could move it forward an hour again, that would be really useful.
Gonna move on to Saturday?
Yeah, looking at the Saturday challenge, Saturday the 16th, 48 players. First place was Mono Blue Terror. Second was Grixis Affinity. Third was Jund Glee. 4th and 5th were both White Weenie. 6th was Bogles. 7th was another copy of White Weenie, and 8th was Black Green Fog. And then the 2 near misses, 9th was Jeskai Wildfire, and 10th was Mono Blue Terror. I guess starting off, a really good result from White Weenie, like 4th on the Friday, and then 3 in the top 8 on the Saturday. Is pretty mega. The list, there's nothing that really stands out to me as different. The sort of just as you would expect White Weenie. One of them's playing a couple of Judges Familiars and Suture Priests, which we've seen as like an answer to Glee. But other than that, I believe the other 2 are just like stock, fully stock White Weenie. So I'm not sure where the surge in formers came from, but I guess it's got a good matchup against Kuldotha, which is a good place to start if you want to do well.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it is. Obviously, with the influx of affinity, like Friday was affinity plus red. Like if that's what you want to verse, then I'd play this in a heartbeat. If that's what I was expecting to verse the whole time, then I'd probably rock something like this. I do like the Suture Priest sort of Judges Familiar sort of angle. It's pretty interesting. But obviously, I would imagine it's for making the Glee matchup slightly better.
Yeah.
But I also think you'll probably make the other 2 good freer matchups probably slightly worse. I don't know. That's my only thought with that.
Yeah, putting more X1s in place of your X2s is not where you want to be against Kuldotha, definitely. I'm just trying to see what they've cut for them, to be honest. I actually think the squaddies have gone. Militia Bugler, Novice Inspector. I actually don't know what they've cut for these Suture Priests.
It's looking like Militia Bugler's gone.
Oh, Buglers.
And they've cut down on a Novice Inspector.
Yeah, not ideal. And an Eagle.
And an Eagle, yeah.
Yeah, so you're ending up with a lot of X1s and then no real draw power anymore. Like the Bugler's being cut is really rough because that's probably one of the better cards in the deck, to be honest.
Yeah, that and Core Skyfisher give you so much long game.
Yeah. But it definitely paid off in this challenge in particular. Yeah. Sweet to see. Outside of that, the mono blue lists, the 10th and 1st lists. The first was Discover N, who was just playing the list that he always plays, which is the Demon Inferior list. The 10th place was that AK Dragon's Wings list that we've been seeing popping up and about.
Yeah.
Still basically the same from what I can tell, with a 1 of Dragon Wings, 1 of Murmur Mystic, 4 AKs, down to 3 boomerangs. Yeah, still doing weird stuff with that. Has a 1-off foil in the sideboard, which is something I haven't seen in quite a long time in Pauper.
Yeah, it's a pretty odd one. I've seen like familiars pick it up, like normal familiars, but yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it. It's not really a card that sees much play. Yeah, I just love how all these Dragon Wings lists are around, and then Discover N's just it's alright, don't need
it. On, I guess, sweet list wise, the Bogles list that was somewhere 6th. Trying some new stuff. 3 Spider Umbras, which again is something that's been in Bogles before, but not for a long time. I'm not massively sure what it's trying to accomplish with Spider Umbras. Like reach is fine. I'm not sure it's better than First Strike off a Hyena Umbra or something, but maybe being green is the key. But also, like, your stuff's got hexproof, so it's not getting destroyed that often. So I'm not sure where the Umbra effect is really needed, I guess.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing for me. Like being green probably seems like the biggest plus side. Like the reach doesn't really have much, but then as you say, like totem armor's only doing destroyed, so it's what is that affecting? Like obviously all the
Mm.
edict, it doesn't protect against the edicts. It's like breath weapony, electricity stuff. But then they're not
Then it
gonna
doesn't die anyway
exactly.
once it's on. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So very odd.
Other than that, they've cut down on masks to 3, which is not unheard of. But armadillo cloaks to 3 as well, which is a pretty big cut.
Mm.
And then sideboard wise, we've got quite an interesting sideboard plan of a swamp and 4 trespassers curse, along with 3 duress as like a black sideboard package. I'm assuming just because the Glee matchup is absolutely horrendous.
I just don't get it. Like, why do people think Trespassers Curse is a good sideboard card? I'm not sold. I'm sorry.
To be fair, in Bogles, it makes a lot more sense. Obviously, Adam Black's a really big cost, but it's something that adds to your overall game plan. And
Mm.
in Bogles, you only really need to slow them down anyway, because then you can be faster.
Mm. But you're also
The
slowing
ping.
yourself down, though, right? By playing black
Well,
to an
yeah,
extent.
yeah. To an extent, like you're sort of slowing yourself down, but then you're doing it to play an enchantment, which then speeds you back up with all like your ethereal armors and your ancestral masks anyway.
Mm.
And then the drain is actually relevant, like to increase your speed. Like it could take a turn off the clock if they play like a couple of creatures.
Mm.
Um, but black is a real cost, especially in something like Bogles where the mana base is really bad anyway.
Mm.
Adding another colour isn't the most straightforward thing to do.
No, definitely an interesting thing, but I'm still not sold. I play mono black and I'd still be reluctant to play Trespassers Curse. But yeah, like I don't know. I think obviously it worked for them. Like I don't understand the logic behind the Umbra as we've obviously discussed, but I think it has a lot of potential. It's great, obviously, if you are in like the red sort of meta. Oh, it's just dawned on me. Spider Umbra is great against Crackland Charm and Toxin, right? Does it work well? Oh no, it'll always have Death Touch
No,
even if it
because
dies.
it just dies. It removes the Umbra off the first ping and then just dies off the second ping, right?
Mm. And it always has Death Touch on it. Yeah, it always has Death Touch even if it dies. Yeah, yeah. No, I was thinking, like the first one has Death Touch and the second one it doesn't work like that. Yeah, now I'm even more confused. But
I guess against Crackland in general, without the toxin, it makes them commit quite a bit more to the board. Or does it?
Yeah, because it removes.
Work?
Yeah, so it destroys the.
Yeah, because it removes the
all
damage.
the damage.
Yeah.
So you'd have
So
to redo it.
they have to commit to kill it and then commit to kill it again.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, that's not irrelevant. Obviously, if they've got the toxin, it doesn't work. But say you've got like a 5/5 Bogle, like them having to commit 5 to it and then 3 to it or whatever it is afterwards, if you've got an ethereal armor or whatever on it, is like way too much to commit, I suppose.
But then, do you know what that also does to me? My logic is then that would then make me think, why are you not playing Vines instead of Trespassers Curse? Because then that would then count. You could then have game against Glee, and then also game against Crackland Charm and Toxin, for example. Because then making them commit double Clarklands like a real cost. So, food for thought, people. Food for thought.
Yeah, but yeah, it's sweet to see
Sweet.
Bogles do well.
Of course.
And obviously utilising new sort of things in the sideboard and in the main deck is always sweet as well. Whether they'll stick or not remains to be seen.
Yeah.
And then the last deck that I'd pulled out to speak about is the 9th place list, which I had called Jeskai Ephemerate, but I don't think it actually is. Well, it sort of is, but it's sort of 4-color Ephemerate.
Yeah, it's splashing black off
It's quite a heavy splash though. It's more heavy than I actually initially realised.
It's got an ice tunnel in, which is obviously searchable from Lauren Revealed, the blue-black land, but then it's also got 2 swamps which you can get off depends on Wildfire. But it's to support 3 cast downs, a crypt incursion, a flashback of a mystical teachings, and then 3 snuff outs, and then 1 duress.
And a duress, yeah.
1 duress.
I like looked at the mana base. I was like, oh, it's splash and black. But then, because obviously the bridges are all just like the usual bridges, the red, white, and the blue, red ones. But then it's got a lot more black cards, and it actually has red cards. It's got 1 Scred, 1 breath weapon, and the 4 wildfires.
At this point, do you even care about the Wildfire and the red cards? Like, why not just play Esper?
I think it's just too slow, right?
I don't know.
I think you need the Wildfire speed to really be competitive a lot of the time with a pile like this, a control pile. Like if this is just straight Esper, you just die into Kuldotha every time, right? Which maybe you are anyway, but
like I don't know, it just seems so odd. Like I don't know, maybe I don't know. Like obviously you could potentially lose all the bridges, and you could play like a landscape mana base to get untapped. But you're talking like a different deck at that point. But to keep the sort of speed or interaction up, you're not running Scred, so it's like you've only got 1 in this deck anyways.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I guess the real question is sort of what are you gaining from this black? Like we were just saying before, like the Scred is essentially the red snuff out. So you need to be playing snuff out alongside Scred. Like, how much sense does that make? Like, especially if you're only on 1 Scred anyway. Yeah, it's a weird one for sure.
Yeah, I don't like. I get the idea of like snuff out to an extent. Obviously, you'll be tapping out in the early turns for your augurs and your wildfires and all that sort of stuff, and you can just wham bam, he's a snuff out. You can't get early comboed. Like I sort of get that to an extent, but then you're running 1 Scred and 3 cast downs. Like,
yeah, I guess that's the other ways. Could you just play more Screds instead of the cast downs and just have a really light black splash where you basically just want your tap jewel or like a single swamp off your wildfire, and then that supports your snuff outs.
Just seems so odd.
But yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see another take on Wildfire. Like Wildfire piles, endearingly, I'll endearingly call them piles. Seem to be really coming back into vogue recently.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, when Wildfire was printed, there was sort of the weird like Darksteel Citadel ones, and then once we got the bridges, like it just sort of exploded. In Wildfire was in every color. Every color was just red X Wildfire pile, trying to make it work. We then sort of diluted really, really far down to basically just Jeskai. Ephemerate was the only Wildfire pile deck, but now we seem to really be expanding again on like Wildfire piles that are actually playable. We've seen the Jund one crop up. This is now, I guess, a take on the Jeskai one. Although, as we say, it is very much leaning into being Esper, splash Wildfire.
Speaking of Wildfire piles, that seems like a good segue to Sunday. I don't know if you've got anything else to touch on.
Yeah, no. I'm happy with that. So Sunday the 17th had 65 players, so we're back to our regular playing numbers. First place was Black Red Madness. Second place was the Pinger Aggro deck. Third was Combo Walls, out of nowhere. Fourth was Jund Wildfire. Fifth was Mono Blue Terror. Sixth was Black Green Fog. Seventh was Black Green Glee. Eighth was a second copy of Black Red Madness. And then the near misses, 9th was Grixis Affinity, and 10th was Grixis Wildfire. Yeah, I guess jumping right into it, the Jund Wildfire in 4th, which I know is something you've been looking at quite heavily.
Yeah, the deck, looking at this, obviously the list at the moment, like the lists are a bit out there at the moment. They're all very similar, but all very slightly different at the same time. It's usually so that the threats are generally the same to the creatures. Sorry, the creatures are the same with usually 3 Kraklan, 4 Refurbs, 4 Writhing Chrysalis, and then 2 to 3 Nyxborn Hydras is usually like where it is, and then that's sort of like where they make space. This list is running all of those. It's running 2 Nyx spawns, and then it's got space for 1 Troll of Khazad-dûm. The actual draw package, you usually only run 6 draw spells, 4 Deadly Dispute and 2 Insights. This is chose 4 disputes and only 1 Insight. It's made space for 1 Pulse of Marassa and 1 Suffocating Fumes, which is pretty interesting to me. Pulse is pretty good, obviously, at doing what it needs to do, and obviously gaining life and return and stuff. Very good. Like, you do grind a lot. Yeah. So I'm not surprised that this card made it into the deck. I wouldn't be surprised if they played the Evolution Witness first and then ended up on this, because Evolution Witness is this card that's either great at grinding or it's almost unplayable. Like, it's so slow. And it just looks like this deck has had trouble with red. So it's like, I need to somewhat try and fix this. Because the deck, my issue with the Jund Wildfire deck at the moment is with the removal spells being what they are. They're usually 3 to 4 Galv Blasts and then 2 to 3 Cast Downs. And then after that, it's 3 Cracklands, 2 Toxins. That's sort of like the glue that's making the deck function, is the Crackland Toxin Analysis combo. And you actually run surprisingly low artifacts. You only run 9 artifacts, which is fairly stock. That you end up sacking random stuff like treasure tokens or lands to like make that work, or even obviously the actual clue token from the toxin. And it just gets all round awkward, I found. But I really like the take on the fact that they've cut down the Nyx-born Hydras, because the card's really good late, but it scales okay. Like, obviously you can play it in the mid game and it's fine. But with 3, it does actually end up getting quite clunked in your hand with all these Deadly Dispute effects.
Yeah.
Like, you're wanting interaction and you're just sitting here with 3 Nyx-born Hydras in your hand. It can get pretty awkward. So I'm not surprised at cutting down on those, but only cutting down on they've essentially cut down on the removal as well, with only gone down to 4 blasts, which I find really, well, overall really interesting. Because Galv Blast's an awkward one. It's great for reach, obviously, as Kuldotha knows and Affinity knows, but it does struggle to kill quite a lot of things in the format. So, like, it can't really kill a Writhing Crystal, like, obviously a Cast Down or whatever can, so that's pretty interesting.
I think on the Nyx-born front, I would probably agree with you. 2 seems like a much better number to be on. Like, you want to always have access to 1 eventually, but that's pretty much it. You don't want them early. You don't really want to double them up often. The Troll is a bit of a weird one to me, given there's no duel for it to search for. It's literally just 3 swamps. I'm just not really sure that's needed at all. Like, your removal's all red, so if you need a red early and you've got a Troll, you just can't get it. And I don't know how much like your black needs fixed when you've got 4 Twisted Landscapes, 2 Vaults, 4 Bridges, and 3 Swamps already, as well as 4 Wildfires. Like,
the only thing I can think of with Troll, and it sort of half made sense when I played a couple of leagues with it, is even though it's got 20 lands, it's such a mana hungry deck. It struggles for lands quite a lot as well. Like, if you don't find a Wildfire, half the time you're stuck on like 3 to 4 lands, and you can function. Like, don't get me wrong, you can function, but you want to be casting 2 to 3 spells a turn. You want to be going like, here's my artifact, here's my Deadly Dispute, here's my removal spell, then follow it up with here's my Deadly Dispute, here's my big bomb, and you just can't do that without Wildfire. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a cat like it's a land without it being a land. It gets you to that 5 and 6 early. You can then Blood Fountain it back, and it's like, I know, and obviously I would probably lean on. I don't even know if I would lean on End, but I feel like it's probably the better of the 3. Like, obviously the Oliphant.
As a creature, definitely.
Yeah, and that's probably the only reason I can think of is why it's there.
I sort of think if that's the case, though, one of these Twisted Landscapes should just be a duel.
I could definitely agree with that.
It should be able to fetch probably a red source. Looking at the rest of the list, like your green, you can live without your green for a few turns, but just getting swamps seems to doesn't really make as much sense to me as if you just had a duel in there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But mana is tough with this deck.
Yeah, definitely. It's a sweet list. Obviously we've seen this deck crop up last week and the week before, right? so it's still getting developed quite heavily. The sideboard sort of showcases that to me, I think, quite a bit in this, with basically a bunch of one-offs and then 4 duress.
Yeah, they're all over the spot at the minute. Like
Mm.
you can either go with strengthening the Crackland toxin. Like one of the lists I seen was the 4th Crackland and 2 toxins. Like this has only got a 1-on-1 split. Some go heavier on the Gorilla Shamans, and then some go heavier on more removal. The only one thing that is set is it seems to be every deck seems to have 4 duress in the side.
Mm. I suppose that's the downside for the removal being essentially so light, or the spot removal in particular being so light, is the Glee matchup probably isn't amazing. Like you're pretty reliant on these Crack clans that they only hold them off for so long, and you have to have them in play so they can just get removed. Especially with Glee playing a lot of shambling casts at the moment. So you're leaning really hard on these Gal Blasts.
Yep.
Which aren't enough at all.
Especially when you struggle. To be honest, I've found myself struggling for Metalcraft quite a lot. So like,
yeah.
You can easily find yourself, it's not actually hitting for 4. So, which is sort of relevant. Like it's more 3, but 4 is obviously the crucial number.
Extra blood fountain's definitely going to help that, I suppose. But because your artifact count's not that low. With the familiars, it's what, 13 plus 8, 9, 10, 23. I guess plus sort of half plus treasures off Deadly Disputes.
Yeah, it's just more if you don't find a bridge start, because you're only running the 8 bridges.
Yeah.
Like it finds yourself being like pretty clunky. Like I imagine that's where the vaults come in. Like you usually want 10 to trigger Wildfire consistently, but it seems that Jund Glee and Jund Wildfire just rock an 8 and hoping it happens. And I see. I imagine that's probably where the vaults come in to sort of increase that artifact count on the lands, but again, doesn't help with Wildfire though.
Is it just too slow if you just put in 2 green-black bridges instead of the 2 vaults?
It going the other way. Like some games you'll just won't see any bridges, and then others you'll see like 4.
Too many.
Yeah. So like putting 2 more in probably makes it a bit slower.
Yeah.
It's trying to find that right balance really.
But yeah, sweet one.
Yeah, sweet list.
You might see Tissot play at Nationals, who knows?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Just before we move on to the other sweet Wildfire pile, I just want to mention this Pinger aggro in 2nd place. This one sort of more tries to qualify as Kuldotha, I guess. It's still got 3 Kuldothas in. But again, it doesn't have any of the like Bushwhacker package. It's the same 16 creature package as the one we mentioned on Friday. Yeah, this another list that's sort of very up in the air at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Pretty sweet one. Anything else before we move on to number 10? 10th place list.
No, we'll go for it.
Yeah, so this is another Wildfire pile. We've called it Grixis Wildfire, which it essentially is. It just has 2 weathers in the main and 2 weathers in the side for absolutely some reason. It's quite interesting. Obviously, it's got the 4 refurbs, and then instead of like a Chrysalis, it's got 3 Kenkus. But then it's still gluing together with obviously the 2 Crackland Shamans. There is no toxins, right? So it's just hard relying on just 2 Crackland Shamans and then 4 Galv Blasters, sort of the removal. But the interesting thing we do like about this list, what we were talking about obviously before we started, is that it's basically got 4 forecasts, and that's sort of the main reason why it's low. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's definitely the draw to it is you've got the Wildfire Bridge mana base plus Thoughtcast. My sort of issue with it is you sort of want the green for the threats. In particular, I guess the Chrysalis. Like you lose quite a bit on not having that. And to an extent, the Nyxborn Hydra, like it's pretty good reach. And I feel like, yeah, yeah, I feel like this list hasn't quite made up for that loss. Although I really do like the direction it's going, being more affinity plus Wildfire mana base. I'm not sure the weathers really need to be there. I think they should just be toxin analysis 1 and 2. And then same for the ones in the side should probably just be a third toxin. The only 2 crackland shamans and 4 galves in the main as removal seems very light.
Yeah, I agree.
You do have the draw to get to them, but whether you can deploy your Deadly Disputes and Thoughtcast fast enough to the point where you find them in time is sort of a bit dubious when you've only got 2 shamans. But I really like the sort of idea behind this. It plays a lot more bridges than that other one with the 12, full 12 Grixis ones, but then doesn't really play much else. Like there's no sacklands or normal artifact lands, just basics, and then 2 black dragon gates, which seem like a lean to the fixing for the weathers, which I think you could probably cut for just some more basics or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. The one thing I do like about this list though is 4 blood fountains. That is some commitment to refurb, like that. And that's good enough to me. Like that refurb and blood fountain, especially with 4 of each, will definitely just strip a hand apart, and then also follow it up with killing them. I found that with like Rakdos control, like refurb is good enough as a threat when you're just bringing it back.
Yeah. I think the 4 blood fountains as well smooth over the draws where you don't have the wildfire start.
Yeah.
Because it's going to speed up your thoughtcast and your refurb so much, and essentially give you free fodder for your cracklands that you maybe won't miss that extra ramp that you would have had off the wildfire anyway.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
The Galv blasts also look a whole lot better in this list than they do in the Jund one. Like they basically just fall all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else to add on Sunday?
No, but you should probably make a video of this Grixis Wildfire.
I think, to be fair, Grixis Wildfire is probably something I should probably try and revisit. Like, it previously was like a serpentine curve control deck, but like I feel like with refurb and that, it's just long gone. It doesn't need to be that now. So I'll definitely probably put something together. So moving on to shout out all the grinders, obviously making it interesting for us. Obviously Luffy with the double challenge top 8, one's a win. Hamuda, obviously shout out to Reese for top 8 and whoop whoop whoop. Shout out to Barth for kicking his ass as well. I mean, coming 5th.
It really feels like as well, especially on that Friday. Like I was texting you like round by round. It literally felt like running a gauntlet against grinders. It was nuts.
Usually my round 1's usually Baker, to be fair.
Yeah, so, mine was last time as well.
Shout out to Kirby, obviously for the day and also the top 8. Also always good. And then shout out to obviously all the people playing these wildfire piles, as well as the RGR for the Black Green Fog. He's on his Trespasser Curse Fog, which has been rocking for quite a while. Shout out to all those people. Want to do some hot takes for last week?
Yeah. So my first one from last week was that Season of Mist results, along with others, with Black Green Glee basically playing the Ghast, would cement that as sort of a mainstay for the Glee decks. That definitely seems like it's happened. Like you look at them now and they've just all got 3 to 4 Ghasts, Shambling Ghast in the main.
Yeah, definitely.
It also seems to have transferred to Jund as well. Like the Jund decks that have dropped Wildfire pretty much now are also just playing 3 to 4 Ghasts in the main, even though they don't have like the 1 mana sack draw 2 package. It's just good enough without that.
Yeah. It's a solid card, to be fair, and we're not surprised, to be fair. Let's say we've seen it 2 weeks ago and we thought it would happen sooner, but it's just takes Season of Mist to obviously make the deck good and then make the change, and then if he makes it, so does everyone else. Seems is the common theme. Pretty solid. Mine was that Mono Blue Fair will pick up and be the 5th most played deck next week, and that was not the case. It just fell off. Went quite the opposite. That means usually next week's going to be a big Fair week.
I think, to be fair, Blue Black is still out there, and obviously we've seen the Blue Red as well. Like Spell Stutter is very good still, but just the Mono Blue seems to not have the tools to deal with enough decks in the format. Adding like Scred or Snuff Out to it, for example, gives you a lot more reach to do well. My second take from last week was that more people would try the Weber's Ping at Aggro list after it had another good result. And again, that definitely seems like the case. There was 2 in 2 top 8s. Both obviously different lists, but sort of the same idea of you don't need Bushwhacker, you just play 4 Kessig Flame Breathers and take it a bit slow with some draw 2s.
Solid. My last one was that Jun Wildfire will win next week, and unfortunately came 4th on the Sunday. Has sort of been picking up. A few people have been playing it, which is quite nice. So hopefully we'll get some sort of consolidated lists together and people will know where to start.
Or more wild lists, that would work as well. I feel like they're going to get wilder before they come together.
Yeah. I think my biggest problem is, to be fair, when you're versing it, is it takes like 6 turns for you to realise like what they're actually doing. I had it a couple of days ago where it's like you're assuming it's Jun Wildfire and then no, it actually isn't, it's Jun Glee, or vice versa. Because they're so close, like you need to look, like obviously it's hard to figure out the signature cards, like obviously like the refurb and such like that, and Rumble in the other one, to figure out what it is. It can be quite annoying.
Maybe that's where the Grixis Wildfire has some legs in that it can essentially pretend to be Affinity for ages.
Yeah.
Like if you play the first game out, like they're probably bringing in like Gorilla Shamans that do nothing against your mana base.
Definitely.
And stuff like that. So maybe that's where that one could win out quite a lot. Hot takes for next week. Still on the Wildfire train. My first one is that Wildfire piles we'll be seeing a lot more of. Especially after this weekend, I'm probably going to double down on that there's just going to be a load of different coloured Wildfire decks. See what sticks.
Yeah, my next one is sort of on the same vein. It's actually to the point I can't even remember writing this. Did I write this?
I didn't.
Is that more people will basically experiment with these Wildfire or Gate piles. Green-white Gates has been doing quite well in leagues. So I'd be intrigued to see if people do experiment with that to the point it comes into challenges. And then obviously as we've seen more sort of Wildfire decks coming into the challenges, like obviously the Grixis that we've mentioned, people will just be experimenting more craziness with them.
So we're just both expecting to see a lot of different coloured control slow decks.
Yes, even though it'll just be Cold Author everywhere. But you know, we can hope. We can hope.
My last one for next week is the popularity of White Weenie and Black Red Madness will both increase as they both just had a really good weekend. Despite not being like that highly played, I think you said on the Saturday there was only 3 pilots on White Weenie and they all top 8'd. Like people just aren't really playing these lists, and maybe they should be.
Again, I think like Glee's sort of like low but out there at the minute. Like it's there. Like don't get me wrong, it's not massively represented. Like everyone's on Cold Author and Grixis Affinity. That those decks have those decks can marry up quite well against those. Like obviously White Weenie more than Black Red Madness, but still like they both do like have good game against those. So I'm not surprised that if that's the case that these will carry on doing well. My last one is that fairies will rise, like not just not mono blue like I was saying last week, but like as we were talking about the position of Scred and Snuff Out. Like if you expect aggro, like maybe just bring blue red Scred. Like the fairies version, be pretty solid. Like Spellstutter Sprite's pretty good. Scred's obviously in a great position. So
yeah, I think I agree with that. To be honest, Spellstutter Sprite is very good at the moment, just not in mono blue. Like either the blue black fair or the blue black snacker list, or that blue red Scred list that we talked about with the fair packaging, all seem like really good choices at the moment.
Yeah.
Just straight up mono blue does not seem like a good choice.
Anything else to add?
No, that's it from me.
So guys, thank you all for listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please do not forget to share it with your friends, your family, your local pauper community, and even your catering companies. That's all from us at Cast and Comments. Until next time, don't forget to stay hydrated. Peace.
Bye.